Brother asked, tell me about exhaustion. Tell me about exhaustion. There's this awkward pause in the conversation. He waited for an answer. And then Brother asked, looked at David, straight in the pupils, and he said, the antidote to exhaustion is not rest. And he sucked in air, sort of, or maybe just was surprised. But then Brother Rask continued, the antidote to exhaustion is not rest. The antidote to exhaustion is wholeheartedness. The antidote to exhaustion is not rest. The antidote to exhaustion is wholeheartedness. Okay, you see what Brother Rask said shocked David White and shocks us if we're listening, because it's all, but it also at the same time makes a very deep and sane kind of sense, doesn't it? I mean, Brother Rask is not against rest. He's just opposing shallow rest. Brother Rask is not saying don't look forward to fall break. He's not saying don't sleep in on Saturdays. Nor is he saying don't rearrange your schedule so that you can have some sort of margin to breathe and make life less busy. But Brother Rask is actually suggesting that our work hours, our sleep schedules, and our daily schedules and appointments are symptoms of a deeper problem. And that deeper problem is a divided self. So sleeping in, maximizing our couch time from Saturday or Sunday, or pruning back our overgrown schedules, yet again, is only treating a symptom. It's like taking cough drops for strep throat. You need an antibiotic. So when we look honestly at our lives and we see and we feel the relentless busyness, we need to ask ourselves, why am I so busy? Why am I so busy? And before we try to fix that problem, we get to actually look at the restless insecurities, the inadequacies, the flaws, the plain old human ordinariness underneath that busyness. And before I go further, I just want to say, like, maybe some of you in the room don't think you're all that busy. And you look around at, like, I don't know, Penn State or Pitt, and you go, oh, those busy people, right? But, like, you know, I'm at a different school. I won't name names. But, you know, like that, you just have to understand, and I'll talk about this more in tonight, but, like, you're really, really busy. And you have no idea, and I have no idea how busy I am, until we kind of take a step back. Anyway, our passage tonight gives us the courage and the freedom to ask after and look at our busyness. Because there we see Martha, anxious and troubled about many things, verse 41. And I want us to notice that she, like me and like us, is busy with really good things. So many good things she's doing. But before some of us stress out about our stress, which is what happens a lot, right? Please notice that Jesus, in Luke chapter 10, verses 38 through 42, do not give us another project. They don't give us another thing to do, which is so counterintuitive. Instead, they give us a posture of being. Literally something to sit at the Lord's feet, listening to his, Jesus' teaching. So in a sentence, Luke chapter 10, verses 30 through 42 encourage us to honestly investigate why you and I are so busy. Because Jesus' presence and his teaching gives every part of us rest. Okay, so you get the opportunity and the encouragement to look at ourselves, and every part of us gets rest by Jesus' presence and teaching. Okay, so Mary and Martha's approach to life and to Jesus, and Jesus' approach to each of these women gives us a clear contrast and sets up our two overlapping points for my note ninjas tonight. Okay, and it's this. First, verses 38 through 41 show us Martha's life. Get a nice picture of Martha's life. And I want you to see there are many real reasons to be busy in this life. There are many real reasons to be busy in this life. Second, verses 39 through 42, we get to see Mary's life. And by Mary's life, we get to see the real way to rest. The real way to rest. So let's look first at verses 38 through 41 in Martha's life, and the many real and very good reasons to be busy. So verse 38, if you look down there with me, we read just why Martha is so very busy. Now, as they went on their way, Jesus entered a village, and a woman named Martha welcomed him into her house. We can see from this verse that Martha spontaneously welcomes Jesus into her house, probably in a small village named Bethany, according to John chapter 11. And some commentators actually think that Martha might have been the only person willing and maybe even able to welcome Jesus into her house in the village and to host him. And this is perhaps because of the immense amount of followers that Jesus had with him. You see, before this verse in chapter 10 of the Gospel of Luke, Jesus sent out and received back 72 followers, okay, in addition to the disciples. In the local area, he told them to go and preach about Jesus and to go and do healings in his name. And so it's highly likely that Martha was not just hosting Jesus, or Jesus plus 12, she was hosting Jesus plus 72 plus 12. 85 guests total. Okay? That number alone would be good reason to be distracted with much serving. Now you add to this giant guest list the incredible cultural expectations of what's to host people in the 1st century AD in the ancient Near East. Okay, let alone a very famous rabbi, teacher, prophet, healer named Jesus, who's in town. Okay, and there are a lot of real reasons for Martha, as the oldest sister and the head of the household, to feel anxious and troubled about what is being served, whether she'll have enough. She had no room to burn anything. Okay, what the house looks like for the impromptu drop-by banquet, and of course, comfort and rest for her many, 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 many guests, right? I mean, she's practically preparing a wedding-sized reception in a matter of hours. Just kind of helpful for context there. And final, and perhaps greatest stressor for Martha in her life in this moment is that her right-hand helper, her younger sister Mary, has decided to go AWOL, to duck and cover and sit and chat with the guest of honor. And this was so socially embarrassing, it's hard to even express. I mean, Martha must have been thinking something like, there goes the Village Hospitality Award, thanks to Mary. Right? Again. And Mary's moment with the boys must have left Martha sort of to serve alone yet again. And all this is to remind us, and this is really just one big apology for Martha to say, that Martha had good reasons for her building volcanic anger. Okay? It's so easy to dismiss Martha, isn't it? We read this passage and go, busybody Martha, anal retentive Martha, there she goes again, you just need to relax, Martha, take a chill pill, chillax already, Martha. But once we start to see her circumstances and even step into them with her there in our imaginations, we start to gain a real compassion for Martha, don't we? Perhaps especially when we think about our own lives in the 21st century, in this part of the world. Whether it's Pitt, it's Happy Valley, whether it's Delaware or Maryland, whether you're an engineer or a nursing student, or just trying to get your gen eds done and you're not really sure what you're up to after your associate's degree, whether it's Millersville or Akron, whatever it is, we're busy. We're busy. And I think if you read cultural commentators about our time in world history, almost to a person they will say that we live in the busiest cultural moment in human history. That is a bold statement. And it's in large part due to the advancements in technology, right? Our expansion of travel and information technology has just boomed. It's made work and even socially keeping up have no closing time in our lives. That's new. I remember in Washington, D.C. when I lived near there, I remember seeing someone doing email while I was walking down the street, and I thought, that's crazy. But we do that all the time now. What you can do with the device in your pocket, whether it's flips open or has a personal assistant named Siri, is unprecedented and seemingly limitless. It just is. No nation in the world also has so enthusiastically embraced this. The increased connectivity, the increased productivity, no nation has embraced these things more than the United States of America. We are in it to win it. Okay? Statistically, we are first in the world in the average hours worked per week. We are first in the world in minimum vacation days given. We are first in the world in not using all of our minimum vacation days given. We are first in the world in stress-related diseases. In the words of Brian Habit, we are a nation of Marthas. We're a nation of Marthas. And I want to emphasize, like Martha's projects, that many of the things that we're busy with are really actually very good things. Okay? That said, what all this means is by mere habit alone, you and I, definitely counting myself in this, clearly, we all feel guilty when we're not doing something. Okay? We feel restless or ill at ease, and we're just constantly trying to fill our weekday schedules or our Friday nights with plans. Sometimes we just feel so paralyzed that we can't even start the school math problem set, or maybe we can't even start the reading because we just think it's going to hang over our sleeping heads until the morning. And look, I don't have to prove this to you, but I will, okay? What do you do when there's a down moment in a conversation? Look at your phone. Okay, that's what I do. We're restless. Or what do you do like after you finish your exams, right? You've just finished your finals, like for weeks you've been sitting there going, if I could just get through this, life will be so good, right? I'm just going to cram, I can do it, I'm going to pull some late nights, but I can do this, it's going to be fine. You get to whatever day it's over, you finish your last one, you drop your pencil, you close your whatever green, blue book, maybe your laptop, whatever it is, and you just jump out of there, you're like prancing for joy, there's like Gatorade buckets going over your head, you're like, this is amazing, right? And then you get back to your dorm room, and you sit down, you feel great, and then 5 minutes later you're like, what's next? Right? What's next? Okay, so, but before we start quitting things like at random, we're closing our eyes and clicking our heels together and saying, there's no place like the beach. There's no place like the beach with a Corona when I'm 21 years old. Right? Before we start doing that, I want us to remember that our external busyness is a symptom of internal restlessness. And that it's treatable and it can be mended. That's so important. It's treatable and it can be mended. Okay? And we see this internal truth reflected in how Luke describes Martha in our passage. She's distracted. This is a Greek word that literally means pulled in every direction. Martha is anxious. Again, in the original Greek, she's going to pieces. And she's troubled. The Greek word phorubeo, a word that can mean internal stressful disorder. In verse 42, Jesus correctly identifies that serving was not the problem. It's not that she's serving, or even how many people she's trying to serve. The core problem is the priority of her needs. For Martha, many things were necessary. Martha had to have a perfect performance as a hostess. Everyone else had to be happy with her meal and with her. Every dish and every helper, like Mary, had to have its right and appropriate place in life. And these many necessary things internally replace the one necessary thing. Jesus, right? And to the point in Martha's life that she stomps up to Jesus, and this is my favorite scene, leans forward and lets him have it in verse 40. Here's my paraphrase. Can't you see that Mary's not doing her part, Mr. Know-it-all? Don't you even care about me? Don't you even care about your meal, Mr. Healer-Feeler? You've got to understand that's bold. That's angry. It's oftentimes when we're most depressed, when we're most anxious, when we're most upset and exasperated like Martha, that we get to see Jesus' view of our divided hearts. And that's why we hate being that way. My loves, my priorities have gotten completely disordered yet again. Why do I care so much about this study group, this paper, this intramural game, for Pete's sake? Why is this leadership position, this job, or even that stranger's passing comment to me so very necessary to me and to who I am? And I think Jesus is inviting us to see that we feel divided, that we're not wholehearted most of the time. We live what feels like double lives, the public resume life, where we're large and in charge, state college game-changing, and the private, insecure, ashamed, and hidden mind. And the Bible calls this literally play acting, and it refers to this first century practice in drama where they wear a mask that says, I'm a hero, okay, I will come through no matter what. Or a mask that says, I'm a clown, and I'm here to make other people feel good, no matter what. Let me illustrate this truth from my life, because that's probably easier for all of us, okay? By telling you why I had to quit watching the show Breaking Bad. Okay? Are you familiar with Breaking Bad? Everybody? Ish. Okay, it's a little dated at this point. Okay, it's about a high school chemistry teacher who decides to cook and sell the drug meth. Okay, in his spare time. I can't exactly recommend it as a pastor. Okay? As a private citizen, I did watch it until I couldn't take it anymore. And here's why. Look, on the surface, it makes no sense why I wouldn't like this show. Okay, it's probably one of the best TV shows of all time. Most people agree on that. It's well written, it's entertaining, it really kind of gets at huge things of what it means to be a human being. It's insightful. It's set in a state that it lived in for 4 years, New Mexico. Okay? I know it's hard to believe, but like people like Jesse and Badger do exist in real life. A lot of them. The guy was not that creative. Okay, it's just they're all over the place. I knew about 8 of them. Anyway, I tried to watch Breaking Bad, but I couldn't. I got more and more worked up inside while I was watching it and after I would turn it off. And I couldn't figure out why. And when I get metaphorically bothered about something like this, I tend to take myself aside, and after telling myself to knock it off, I actually take a moment and get curious and ask, why am I so bugged? What bugs me so much about watching Breaking Bad? And so I was talking to a fellow pastor about this one day, and I began to realize I cannot watch Breaking Bad because the suspense of the plot hinges on Walter White's double life. Right? As Walt, right? He's got the Walt persona. Ho-hum, slightly boring, upstanding, wimpy, nice high school chemistry teacher, right? And then there's Heisenberg, right? Explosive, homicidal, criminal mastermind, meth distributor extraordinaire, okay? With a strange semi-formal fedora hat. The plot is built on whether or not Walt's wife, Walt's son, Walt's colleagues, his principal, Walt's brother-in-law who works for the DEA will discover his hidden identity, that he's a sometimes ruthless meth dealer and meth maker. And look, somehow I identify with this. Well, not the whole like murder and meth, right? It's not that kind of confession, right? guys, okay, let's pray. Let me briefly explain why I identified this as a pastor. As a pastor, I feel like such a pressure to be Walt. Do you get that? Like maybe you feel like this if you're a Christian leader in RUF, or maybe you feel like this just being a Christian at your school. There's this pressure to be nice and standing, caring, and perhaps even a little bit boring and ho-hum, right? You know, and at the same time, there's this part of me that doesn't feel nice at all, right? Or that caring, really, and may not really be making meth in a trailer, per se, but that hidden part of me wants to be brutally honest and say mean things, like with people across the table from me. You know, like, I want to sort of say something mean but honest, and then I want to just drop the mic and walk away. That's like what I want to do inside. You know, someone sits there and says something again about a breakup, and I want to say like, get over it, boom, just walk away, right? Like, that's what I want to do inside. Part of me wants to roll my eyes at yet another Davidson college student that wants to save the world, okay? Trying to fix something that's been broken for millennia before them, okay? Another part of me wants to actually sort of eat, that part of me is the same part of me that that instead of doing all of those things, just pours myself a third bowl of Captain Crunch after a large beer. And eats that third bowl. But what do I do with that angry mic dropper and cynical Captain Crunch muncher inside of me? What do I do with that? I stuff him deep down inside. Do you get this? I stuff him down deep inside. I use him as fossil fuel for my Martha-ness. He's the thing that gets me worked up and busy about all things email. He's the thing that gets me worked up about student expectations, about getting hands-on and or passive and impatient with my 6-year-old's reading level in school. This is the thing that makes me so worked up about what happened at the playground for him, the social dynamics. Like the highs and lows I'm experiencing because I care so much, because I'm so worked up. Because I'm so Martha. And I think you can see the point of, and hopefully relate to this confession, right? Can you see that? Can you get there? We're busy because we have a lot of demanding voices, not only outside but inside, popular us. But how does Mary show us the way to Jesus' cure for busyness and divided hearts? How does she do that? We see it in verses 39 through 42, second point. Okay, the real way towards rest. Look at verse 39. There, it tells us that Mary sat at the Lord's feet and listened to Jesus' teaching. And this is 85 guests' side conversations. Martha, her sister, having a near stress-induced panic attack in the kitchen. Mary wanders off, goes to the public common room, steps into the front row, sits down crisscross applesauce, and listens to Jesus teach. It's hard to overstate how radical that maneuver was. in the first century for Mary to do that. Okay? She jumps into a gender-segregated room and decides to be the only woman there. She mixes with male company, and then she sits at Jesus in a posture that indicates that she wants to be a learner, a disciple. She's willing to hear from him as a rabbi and willing to follow him as a Lord. The ancient Jewish commentators on God's law, what are called the Mishnah, okay, around this time period, I just want you to get like a sense of how radical this is. They compared a man giving his daughter knowledge of the law to sending her into a life of prostitution. That's what's going on. Okay, another example. The ancient Jewish law, the Mishnah, compared a man talking much to womankind as grounds for inheriting damnation. But Jesus doesn't just tolerate Mary's presence. He doesn't humor her desire to learn about God's law as a woman. No, in his typical, radical, world-altering way, Jesus exalts Mary as an example. He doesn't just ignore her, he turns to her and says, look at her. Mary has chosen the good portion, which will not be taken from her. This is a reference to Mary caring about the right meal, not the meal being prepared in the kitchen, the everlasting word of God before her. But even in Jesus' enthusiastic and extremely countercultural affirmation of Mary, Jesus is so gentle with Martha. He's so gentle with so many of us in our busyness. This is what we don't believe. Verse 41, Jesus uses her name twice. Which is a biblical name, which is a biblical sign of incredible gentleness. Martha. Martha. Verse 42, he invites her to a different way of life. Martha, Martha, one thing is necessary. Come and sit at my feet and let my words wash over you. Fill your echoing mind. Energize your dog-tired hands and feet in my presence. And this is the invitation to us this evening. Whether we feel more like Mary or more like Martha right now, Jesus is saying, sit. Sit. Come and sit at my feet. You don't need to do anything else. Just be your whole divided self with me. See, the power behind our busyness and divided selves comes from the belief that no one can love all of me. No one will like me when I show them this part or when I do that thing, when I act like a little fearful boy again, or when I get white hot and angry and lose it like a diva, or when you tell that person that you can't get to sleep without looking at pornography or doing 50 crunches. Then, when that comes out, then they will all turn away. Or we'll lose that image that we have worked so hard to publicly construct, one extra responsibility at a time. But Jesus is telling us to present our whole selves before God, the public, polished, honorable parts, as well as the private, raw, and deeply ashamed parts of ourselves. But how can he do this? And how do we know he's not going to drop us? How do we know that he's going to receive us and won't just turn away or ask us to do something more or be something more before he gives us any kind of love? Because of verse 38. Verse 38 tells us that Jesus stopped at Mary and Martha's house on his way to something. On his way to somewhere very important. On his way to Jerusalem. And where he would accomplish what has by chapter 10, verse 38, already been twice predicted. He will suffer, he will be rejected, he will die, and he will be resurrected. All in the shadow of God, his Father's temple. And this suffering, this rejection, this death has a resolute purpose. To make it impossible for God to turn away from him. Because he turned away from Jesus on the cross. To make it impossible for God to feel anything but love and kindness for my every divided part, my every hidden deed, my every creepy thought or creeping feeling. And so we come at Jesus' feet, and what does that look like? It looks like praying to God. And it looks like starting that prayer where we are. Telling God how divided and busy we feel. Ever done that? Or how much we want or don't want to be whole. Or confessing that we don't know how to be still before Him. Or maybe we don't even know how to pray or what to pray. And sometimes this looks like just stopping and sitting crisscross applesauce and telling God where we are and how we are. Merely saying the words of so many saints before us in the Bible. Here I am, God. Here I am. Oftentimes, however, Jesus is also inviting us to listen to His teaching. Notice Jesus seems to think His teaching is pretty dang important. Okay? It's the one needful thing. The Christian life does not stop with a mere adoring gaze at the ceiling. Right? It also looks like being a student of what Jesus taught. That's the Bible. It looks like wanting to know, or even wanting to want to know, what the Bible says, and how and why it tells a particular story, or states a particular fact, or invites us to a particular command. And sometimes that can feel like really hard work. I get that. And sometimes it can feel like you're getting busy with trying to get the Word of God inside. But we need to hear the voice of Jesus. We need to hear His living words. Because look, no other words can drown out the other voices that shame us to death. No one else is telling us this. No one else is telling us that someone else's work is enough for me. And His work, Jesus' work, was finished 2,000 years ago. And so I'm free just to sit, as well as I'm free just to serve. Let me end by citing in another former professor of mine, Knox Chamberlain. Dr. Chamberlain is fond of saying this: Jesus Christ is the only obsession that will not destroy you. Jesus Christ is the only obsession that will not destroy you. That is, Jesus is the good portion. He will not and cannot be taken from you. He will not and cannot forsake you, all of you. And this is why the antidote to exhaustion is wholeheartedness. And that integrity begins and comes from resting in Jesus. Resting in His very presence. Resting in His very teaching. His unchanging look of love. His always and forever words of delight. About you and about me. Would you pray? Father, thank you that you invite this kind of honesty, that you tell us to come, all of us to come, to bring every part of us, but that you don't leave us there. You don't make us melt into a puddle for you, but you're so gentle, you're so kind, you're so tender with us. And I pray that these students and I will feel your gentleness, your patience, your kindness, and that we would rest in you. In your name we pray, Jesus. Amen.